Hello there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
Yay! Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Never Knew with life coach Maureen. I am Maureen Scanlon, certified life coach, relationship expert, author, and ex-sabotager codependent from toxic relationships. I have such a treat for you guys today. When I saw this beautiful woman's profile, I literally said to myself, oh my gosh, that's me. So I knew her and I were going to just be able to go back and forth and talk about our very, very similar situation. So today I have Kel Cal, and she is a toxic relationship healing mentor, a mindset expert, podcast host, and the founder of How I Cured My Resting Bitch Face, which I freaking love. Kel was living what appeared to be the dream life, but in reality was secretly miserable in an emotionally abusive marriage. So she made the bold decision to leave her life in sunny South Florida and move across the country to start her life in the rainy city of Seattle. Wow, talk about a complete opposite spectrum. She now uses her personal experience to help women recover from toxic relationships so they can break free from their past and create a future they love. Kel believes that toxic relationships can be the catalyst for total life transformation and that all women deserve to fall in love with themselves so they can live happily ever after. Amen, sister. Welcome, Kel.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here with you, Maureen. Thank you for such a beautiful introduction.
Oh my gosh, I could give no less because you are fabulous and I cannot wait. Guys, she also has a podcast that I am in love with the title of. Mine wasn't as clever as hers, and I'm so jealous. It is Dear Dumb Bitch, because we all have an inner dumb bitch that's teaching us life lessons when we actually pay attention. How the heck did you come up with that title?
I I don't even know. I used my original brand, How I Cured My Resting Bitch Face, which there's a backstory for that I would be happy to share. So my brand, How I Cured My Resting Bitch Face, was actually inspired by my then abusive, now ex-husband. So he used to regularly ask me, like this would be how I would start the day. It would be like a random Tuesday morning, and he would ask me, what's wrong with your face? Why do you look like such a bitch? And at the time, my response was always the same because back then I used to think that I was the problem, that there was something wrong with me, that I needed to change myself. And I would always say, I don't know, sorry, it's just my face. I'll try to change it, not realizing that I was living in such toxic circumstances and was just miserable. And when I left the relationship, I created a program for myself to recover and heal from the relationship. And I called it How I Cured My Resting Bitch Face and How You Can Too. And that was back in 2018 when my journey began. And it just seemed like the perfect name for the brand that I built since then.
I absolutely adore that because isn't that where the best stuff comes from is, that's how we find our purpose. I mean, being in those situations and these aha moments and you look back after you're out of the weeds and you go, "Oh wow, yeah, that's great. That's a perfect thing for it." I love that you said how you apologize. "Oh, I'm sorry for my face." Because when you're in a toxic relationship, you just think you are never pretty enough, you were never good enough, you were never smart enough, and you have to, it must be your fault because these gaslighters are so great at making it our fault. We're
Yes.
we're going to start with your story because that's the fun place to start. So our listeners hear this is how bad it was, but look at how I took the journey and this is where I am and this is where you can be too. So listeners, if you're in a toxic relationship, if you're in the middle of the journey or you're past the journey, I love sharing these stories. That's why I say I never knew, because there were things I didn't know and I want to be the voice my younger self needed. So let's go. Cal, tell us how it all began. How long were you married? How did it start?
All right. So I never actually knew how toxic it was until I left. But I was married for 7.5 years when I ended the relationship. It was my decision to leave. And I met my now ex-husband, and we got married very quickly. The relationship progressed very quickly, as a lot of toxic relationships do. And emotional abuse and toxic relationships are interesting because they escalate over time. You don't just enter into this toxic place. It happens slowly. And a lot of the times you don't even realize what's happening because of the abuse cycle, and you're conditioned to doubt yourself. So your entire perception of reality becomes distorted, and your identity becomes attached to another person. So it gradually progressed over time. And I didn't realize how toxic it was. I knew it didn't feel good. I knew I wasn't happy. I knew I needed to make some changes. So in December of 2017, my intuition took over. On December 16th, 2017, I woke up that morning, did not plan on telling my husband at the time that I wanted a divorce, but that's what happened. I told him I wasn't happy. I wanted a divorce. Side note, never tell a narcissist that they are a narcissist, does not go over well. And I'm a planner, and I did not have a plan. And I did not commit to my decision at that point in time. And not shockingly, things did not get better. It got way worse. And it went from me initiating a divorce to my then husband giving me 6 months to change and putting me on this performance improvement plan that I needed to change everything about myself and be better, or else he was going to leave me. And I'm like, wait, I'm the one that wanted to leave, yet I was so afraid to leave. I was afraid to stay. I was just living in fear, and I felt like I was drowning every single day of my life. And it just continued to escalate. My husband and I were business partners, so we were together 24/7. There was no escape. And in March, I knew I needed to get away. So I took a trip to visit my sister who lived in Washington. I had never been to Washington at the time prior to then, because I was never allowed to visit her. There's all of these unspoken rules in these relationships. You don't even realize the rule system is establishing, but you have all of these unspoken rules that you follow. And I was never allowed to visit her, but he granted me permission to visit her. So I took a 2 week vacation because I just knew I needed to get away. And the second I got to the airport, I knew I could never, ever go back, because I felt something that I hadn't felt in years. And that was happiness and freedom. And I knew that I could never, ever go back to that. So I was there for what was supposed to be a 2 week vacation. After the 2 weeks, I flew back to Florida, packed my shit in garbage bags. I filed for divorce. I returned my Porsche because I went broke overnight after my ex withdrew every penny we ever made from our bank account. And 2 days later, I was on a flight back to Washington, and I'm like, all right, I live here now. I'm going to rebuild my life. I don't know how, but I am determined to have this somehow be the best thing that ever happened to me. And I can honestly say 4 years later that it truly was.
I can see it on your face. I just see there's a light. And I think when we're in these abusive relationships, we lose our light. And then all of a sudden, it's like you said it best, I had happiness and freedom. So that profound moment when you woke up on 12, 16, 17 saying, I'm going to ask for a divorce. You're absolutely right. Without a plan, guys, especially with an abuser, I'm certified in narcissistic relationships. What they do is they do isolate you. They keep you away from your family, your friends. They don't want anybody in your ear telling you you could do better. So I always say with these stories, no matter what the stories are on this podcast, we all had this sort of aha, profound moment where it was like, I just knew. And I used to say, you'll know when you know, no matter how long it takes, you'll know when you know. What was your profound moment on 12, 16, 17 that you said, oh gosh, I've got to tell him today's the day? No holds barred.
I don't even know. I can't even say I can't take credit for it. It truly was just my intuition taking over. I had that sense of knowing deep down, but when you're in a toxic relationship, you are ignoring and rejecting your intuition because you're overlooking the signs, and you learn to ignore and disregard your feelings because you only feel your partner's feelings, and your intuition communicates with you through feelings. So was essentially rejecting my intuition for years, and she just had enough. There was no turning back.
You're so right. And I think it's the war between the intuition and the gaslighting that the toxic partner does, where they make you feel crazy and it's your fault and all this is happening. So there's this like half of you is like, wait, no, I know I'm good. I know I can do better. I can get out of this. I can be good. And the other half is like, well, he's telling me I'm not good. He's telling me I have a resting bitch face. He's telling me all of this is my fault. How do we come to terms and how do we help others to let that tuition, kind of suffocate that other part?
Oh, it's challenging to and really and kind of untangle the mess of his beliefs versus your beliefs, because you are conditioned to doubt yourself. They want you to doubt yourself so that way you don't think about leaving. You can stay in your role, so to speak. And I just really had to go deep and, for the first time, and as long as I can remember, trust that I know what's best for me, and to turn down the noise of the beliefs that he gave to me. And, I have everything written down. I wrote down everything in my journal, and I could still remember the things he would tell me, how I'm just a shell of a person, and he accepted me, and all of these things that really make you doubt yourself. And at the time, I wasn't sure if I was making the best decision of my life or if it was the worst decision of my life. But ultimately, it was the fear of regret that led me to commit to my decision, because I did not want to wake up 5, 10, or 15 years from then and regret not leaving sooner. I was able to accept that maybe I'm ruining my life, which I wasn't. It was honestly the best decision, but I could not accept the regret of not leaving sooner. The thought of that was really what led me to take action.
I love that you said that. It's the fear of regret. So it was, I may not be ready, but I'm ready enough to say, if I don't do it, I'm going to be way worse than I would be if I left. I really appreciate that. In the course that I took on my narcissistic traits and personality disorder, there's a covert narcissist and there's an overt narcissist. Do you know the difference, and tell me what you think your partner in your toxic relationship was?
Oh, give me a quick refresher on the difference, and I'll tell you immediately which one it was.
Yeah. The covert is where, they love bomb you and they make it to where you don't know they're separating you from your family. You don't know that they're slowly taking control. It's very subtle. The overt is, I can see he's controlling me. He blatantly says, you're not going to do this. I'm in charge of you. I own you. That's the overt. Like, you know it. You know a overt narcissist. The covert is the scary one.
It was definitely covert. It was the walking on eggshells. It was the unspoken rules. It was, there's that control, that sense of control, but everything is unspoken. And it's not like you're not doing this. You just, you're not doing that. And you really change how you show up and who you are to keep the peace. And at the time, I still thought that I was responsible for other people. I thought I was responsible for their happiness. I thought I was responsible for what they think and how they feel and what they do. And ultimately, I thought that they were responsible for what I think and how I feel and my happiness. And I had it entirely backwards, but that really is the perfect storm for a relationship with a narcissist because that's how the cycle starts and that's how it spirals out of control.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say this, listeners, whether you're with an addict or you're with a narcissist, it's very similar because you start feeling responsible for their life, and they like that. They make you
Mm,
feel responsible for their happiness, and then you start losing yourself. Me personally, I found myself because my narcissist, or he wasn't a narcissist, but my toxic relationship with my ex husband of 10 years was he had addictions. And it was always, if you don't help me, I'm going to kill myself, or, no one can help me stop drinking like you can. I need you. And so, being that I was codependent, I felt like my life didn't matter. It was all about I'm living to make sure he's okay. I know my codependence came from my childhood. Do you think your childhood had anything to do with your being in the narcissistic relationship or toxic relationship?
Oh, 100%. I truly believe that every challenge and problem anyone experiences in life can be attributed to two things, your childhood and your self-worth. But absolutely, it's it. It's that simple and that complex.
That's a mic drop, guys. That's a mic drop. It absolutely is. I've never even said it that way before. I'm gonna borrow that. I promise you.
Please
Um,
do.
wow, it's your self worth or your childhood because you've got programming that doesn't, I think, align with the values of what you believe about yourself. And if your self worth is not at the level that it needs to be, then you put everybody else before you and everything above you. Uh, Super, super well said. So, and I like that you said you need to have a plan, guys, because the minute a narcissistic person or a toxic relationship, controlling relationship, once they find out they're losing you, they want to grab on even harder. And then
Mhm.
they prepare themselves for hurting you because they're like, oh no, no, I can't be rejected. It's not this can't appear that I have any fault in this. So financial is a big part of it, like you said, giving up
Mhm.
all of that. So tell us, was he physical? Was he physically abusive? Just mentally?
No, he just, yeah, no, I was never physically harmed, which led me to think that the relationship wasn't really abusive. I knew it was toxic, but I didn't realize how abusive it was until I found myself in a domestic violence support group. Because when I left Florida and moved to Washington, I was a hot mess. I was not the person that you see today. And I was fortunate to have the support from my family. I lived with my sister, crashed her family life. She welcomed me into her home. My parents supported me financially because I didn't have access to any of my funds. And they also found resources for me. They found me a therapist. They found a domestic violence support group. And I was like, I don't really think that's for me, but I'll go. I'll see what it's about. And I can still remember the very first session, all the women are doing their introductions and they're, sharing their story. And I just felt such empathy for them, but they're talking about physical abuse and emotional abuse. And, when it was my turn to introduce myself, I expressed, my compassion for them. But I said, I don't think I really belong here. I wasn't physically harmed. And I was informed, no, no, you do belong here. Like, sit down, you're staying. What you experienced is domestic violence. Emotional abuse is considered domestic violence. And a lot of the time, those internal wounds can take longer to heal than bruises and broken bones. So I stayed, and that's really when I realized the depth of my healing journey that I was embarking on.
Yes, and I want to go back because what I said was it just mental abuse? I please forgive me because that is not how my mind works.
Oh no, I didn't interpret
There's
it as that at
okay,
all.
there is no just anything. Abuse is abuse is abuse.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It looks different for all of us when we're in these relationships. So mine was physical, but more than the physical, it was the psychological. It was the I lived my life for him, for his well-being. And then there's the financial. I had 3 children to go out into the world and be a single mom. That was scary. I had all the
Mm,
bills. So there's a lot. There's sexual, there's financial, there's mental, psychological, physical. So there's a lot of abuse, and I don't want any women out there to take the just mental. I definitely don't want that to be said. But I want women to recognize it doesn't matter the degree of abuse.
mm,
It's abuse. And I
mm-hmm.
think a lot of women think, well, he's not that bad. I mean, every now and then, this is a big one. When he drinks, he's only bad when he drinks. You hear
Yeah.
that a lot. It's like, if they're ever changing and they're ever abusive in any situation in your life, I don't care if they're drinking, I don't care if they had a bad day, it's still abuse. And I think we as women who, when we don't have our self worth where it should be, I think we diminish it. We make excuses, don't
Mm-hmm.
we? Don't we make excuses?
Absolutely. We make excuses and we prioritize other people above our own well-being.
Yeah. How'd you find your self worth? What were your steps to saying, I've got to get back to the person I know that I am inside that I lost with this person? What do you think are the best steps for people in these relationships to take?
Yeah, so I truly viewed leaving the relationship as an opportunity. I had to make that shift and focus on everything that I was gaining instead of everything that I lost because I thought I was living my dream life. I had this beautiful house, I drove a Porsche, I lived in sunny South Florida. Like I thought I was living my dream life and it wasn't that. So I lost a lot materialistically and I instead chose to focus on what I was gaining and this journey I was going on, which was this journey to self-discovery and self-love. I had no idea who I was as a person. My entire sense of identity was stripped and attached to another human being that was immediately removed from my life from my choosing. So I knew that I just had to discover myself. And I had this vision of what I wanted my life to look like and to feel like. And it revolved around self love. I somehow knew that that's what was missing because I was giving every ounce of me to somebody else. And I wasn't giving myself the love. I was looking for that love from another person. And I just knew that I needed to develop that love for myself and figure out who I was as a person. And I thought to myself, all right, if I were to form a relationship with somebody else, I would probably need to get to know them before I actually love them. I also knew that I needed to develop trust in myself because I was doubting myself and my decisions and every life decision I ever made. And then I thought, okay, if I was in a relationship with another person, I wouldn't just trust them. I would actually have to get to know them. So that's how I started. It was really a journey of self discovery. I began journaling, and that was honestly one of the best decisions I ever made. I still journal to this day. And it's such a beautiful gift that you can give yourself because it helps you not only process what you experience, but also to regulate emotions and understand and also get clarity on what you want your future to look like. So journaling was a beautiful gift. And I also made a practice of dating myself. I would take myself on dates and just get to know myself. And I really just committed to this practice of getting to know myself and understanding who I am as a human being and deciding who I wanted to be. Because I'm like, if I don't know who I am right now, let me figure it out. But also, let me decide who I actually want to be and what life I want to live because I wasn't living my life. I was living somebody else's life. I was living for them. And that's not a very positive existence. That doesn't feel good. So I really just committed to not only healing from the trauma of the relationship, but I realized I also needed to heal from all of the trauma that led me to that relationship in the first place because I was the common denominator in my life. Kind of a scam when I realized that, but I recognized that if I kept bringing the same version of myself to new life experiences, nothing was going to change. It would look different, but it wouldn't really feel any different. And I would keep repeating the patterns of my past. So I knew I needed to change. I knew I needed to heal. And I just went on this journey to figure it out. And I didn't really have a roadmap. I created it for myself. I took a lot of detours, and I would say I made a lot of mistakes on my own healing journey, but I don't really believe we make mistakes in life. I believe that everything we experience is a lesson to be learned, and I learned a lot of lessons from my detours, and it led me to where I am today.
Yes, girl. Yes, yes. It's so funny that you said that because I say the same thing. I sat down when I was going through my soul journey after all these toxic relationships, and I did them over and over. And it's funny, the one that was the most psychologically abusive is the one that took me the longest to recoup from because it was
Mm.
so damaging. I was literally in this bird cage and he wouldn't let me leave, and I was supporting him financially and the whole thing. So I said the same thing. Why do I keep doing the same thing? Insanity cycle, expecting different results. What is the problem here? It can't all be them because I'm the common denominator.
Mhm.
And so I've always said, if I don't heal, I'm going to get the same man with a different face over and over and over. And I love that you said, and I wrote this down. I was taking little notes. I try to be subtle, so you know I'm listening to you, but I'm writing. I love that you said you decided to date yourself. And it's one of the things I talk about in my one of the I do the signature speech about becoming your own best friend is going on the solo journey of before you can love yourself, you got to like yourself. You have to
Yes.
like being with yourself. And if you haven't had an identity outside of these relationships, you don't have a clue who you are. And how do you feel confident enough to sit somewhere and not feel self-conscious because you've always relied on that validation from that person in that relationship. So I think that's absolutely beautiful. Then when you said, I had to decide who I want to be. And I think that's incredible because it took me longer than it should have because what I said was I just need to figure out who I am. I wasn't like I can choose to be this person. So kudos to you. What a beautiful thing to share with our listeners in creating. We create this life, but when you're in the weeds, you don't think you have any control to create anything, right?
No, and that was one of the things I learned because I thought leaving was enough. I thought as soon as I left, I would feel happy, I would feel free. And that hit me like a semi truck when I realized that's not the case at all. And the reason is you can't create your best life from survival mode. When you are in a toxic relationship, you're living in survival mode. And when you're surviving, you're not thriving. So you really have to create this foundation to support your best life, and that's what the beginning phases of healing is recovering from the trauma, shifting out of survival mode so that way you can create the life that you dream of because you don't get to fast forward through the pain. The pain has a purpose. I used to think the pain was there to punish me and I tried to avoid it. I tried not to feel it. Then I realized, well, you have to feel in order to heal. If you're avoiding your feelings, you're holding on to them and you get to carry them with you. And if you bring the shit from the past with you, your future is going to feel like crap. And I realized that I really needed to feel to heal and let go of the pain and everything I was holding on to, and that the pain serves a purpose. The lessons that will change your life are hidden in the pain that you're avoiding.
Yes, you have. Did you hear that, listeners? You have to feel to heal. And I always say, if your house is on fire, you can walk around the block, but you still got to come home and your house is still on fire. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, that's good.
you
Yeah.
got to put the fire out. You have to
Yeah.
face it. You have to face that thing that you don't want to. When I coach clients who are getting out of these toxic relationships or they just got out of them, one of the hardest things for them to grasp, and this is a non negotiable I like to make for my clients, is no contact. So, how important do you think it is that we cut complete contact off from these types of relationships and people because they are gaslighters? They will suck us back in. What do you think?
Oh my goodness. It's you have to do it. You have to do it. If it's possible, and most of the time it is, it might feel impossible because you're literally addicted to that person and you're going to detox, you're going to have withdrawals. I would say there are a few circumstances, perhaps if children are involved, where it might not be possible. And then boundaries need to become your best friend and getting external support to oversee the circumstances. But if it's possible, you have to do it. You have to, because you cannot heal in the same environment that you got sick. Now, that was one of the mistakes that I made. I went no response. I didn't go no contact. I have not spoken to my ex since the day I packed my shit in garbage bags and left my dream home, but it wasn't for his lack of trying. I blocked him on social media. I resisted the urge to check social media. I did not take his calls, but I didn't block his number, which means I continued to receive texts from him. And in my head, I was telling myself, oh, maybe he'll say or do something that will be helpful for the divorce case and it will really just showcase the personality type that he is. And maybe that was part of it, but also I think that I just wasn't really ready to remove all contact. And I exposed myself to a lot of just attacks on my nervous system and exposure to emotional manipulation. And I can still remember just seeing his name pop up as a text notification and just immediate, like full blown panic attack. And I continued to expose myself to the abuse, even though I was removed because I did not go no contact. So I was disciplined enough, because I tend to be a very disciplined person, to not actually respond, but I still allowed some contact from him in the form of text messages, and it made it way harder than it needed to be.
Yeah, because they'll take every little thing and they'll make it bigger. And if they think
Oh, yeah.
if you're having just a little bit of contact, just letting it, you may have blocked him on everything, but he's like, okay, she still takes my text. So there's still hope there that I can squeeze in. I always say the steak pops his head out every now and then. One of my toxic relationships, he became a stalker. And I would,
Mm.
even with no contact, even with a restraining order, he found his way to me. He would call my work. He would follow me. He would drive by my house. I think in 1 month there was over like 300 or 400 texts. It was, or phone calls, and then to my family, and then to my best friend at the time. It just, you guys have to understand, listeners, if you're in this situation, it is a detox. And I love that she said you're addicted to it and you have to break that addiction, go cold turkey. And when it comes to co-parenting, she said it beautifully. If there are boundaries and you keep it strictly about the children and you keep a safe place to meet, to exchange the kids, that's going to help you heal. But it is definitely difficult with children, because I ended up with 3 children, raising them on my own. But I think that's just super, super helpful what you said. No matter how much they beg you and they tell you they're going to change, it's just not going to change. And don't look at the potential of what you want them to be. Look at what is right in front of you, because that is exactly who they are, what they are, and what they will always be, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
We were
One.
talking. I was gonna say, we were talking beforehand about how you are single, and I think, because I'm remarried now, very very happily remarried. So I think this is where you and I are separate a little bit, but this is so helpful. I want you, Kel, to tell people how you go from this place of mistrusting your judgment and finding, hoping not to find the same person because you've healed and self love. How do you now go out into the dating world? I mean, you guys, if you're looking on video on YouTube and you look at this stunning, beautiful girl, oh, the men are knocking down the door. But I can understand how we go out there. When I started dating again, the fear I had that I wouldn't see the signs. So what do you do now?
Yeah, I had a lot of fear around dating, and dating was also a distraction for me because I still had deeper levels of healing to do that I was avoiding. And my tactic of avoiding was staying busy, being productive, over this, over that. I went on a lot of first dates and it was a distraction for me. And I realized that I wasn't ready for a relationship. And, I had no business dating anyone. I needed to be dating myself. That was really the relationship I needed to be focusing on. And I did go on quite a few first dates. I waited about a year and then started dating again. And then I'm like, this is not what I need right now. So just recognizing what you need, what you're looking for, and also getting really clear on what you're looking for. Because if you don't know what you want, then anything will fit. So it's important to actually make a list, write down what you're looking for in a partner, and make sure that you are demonstrating the matching qualities of somebody that you're looking for, because you don't want to find someone with potential, right? Like, we're not looking for the rehab house that we can fix up and make into the $1 million listing. No, we want to attract the $1 million listing. So you got to make sure that you are the person that would be with the person that you want to be with. And it starts with you, and it starts with knowing yourself, knowing what you're looking for, and trusting yourself. And self-trust is a huge factor in it, because it's really scary dating again when you've been in that type of relationship, because you overlooked signs before. But when you trust yourself, you trust the signs, and you don't settle for less than you deserve. And perhaps maybe you'll go on a date with someone and maybe they'll show you some red flags, and you're going to notice everything. It's like you went from one end of the spectrum of thinking red flags were home decor, let me collect all of them. And then the other end where it's like everything is a red flag, and it's like, okay, what's what? But you really have to experience both ends of the spectrum to figure out what the middle feels like. What's that safe space? And you start to recognize that people make mistakes. A mistake is not necessarily a toxic person, because we're all human, but what you're looking for is patterns. So I would just be more aware of patterns of people keeping promises and being true, making sure that their actions match their words, and ultimately tuning into myself and what my inner being is communicating to me, noticing how you feel, because your body will tell you what your mind wants to ignore and overlook. But you have to pay attention, you have to notice it. So when you're with someone, how do you actually feel? Like, or do you feel tense, or do you feel open? And after the fact, too, starting to notice what your body is telling you, that's how your intuition is going to be acknowledged and can actually guide you to where you're meant to be.
That's amazing because we usually say, don't follow your heart, follow your mind. And it's really the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's feel it. You'll feel it. Your gut will tell you. Pay more attention to your gut. You know, I when my clients come, and I'm so happy that you said you waited a year. I tell everyone, when you get out of a toxic relationship, give yourself a year. When you start dating again, you make sure you give the 4 seasons to that person before you make any kind of commitment. And I mean
Well, and
any kind.
I, yeah, and I can attest to that, because I initially did not wait a year. I initially was like, oh, I'm ready for dating. I had no business dating, so naturally I went on a few dates, and then I realized I have no business dating. I am not ready for this, and I'm either going to end up in another toxic relationship, or I'm going to end up hurting somebody else, because hurt people. And if you don't heal from your past toxic relationships and give yourself the time and space, you're going to end up in another one. There's really only two options after a toxic relationship. You're going to repeat the pattern, or you're going to break it.
Yeah, I remember going on dating sites saying I was looking for a friend. Really? No, I wasn't. I was looking for a distraction. I was looking for
Yeah.
companionship. I was looking for fun. I wasn't looking for a relationship. When I'm coaching, doing dating coaching, relationship coaching, we create what's called an avatar. And so I tell everyone, what do you really want? And I mean on a soul level. And I'll say, only put on this avatar that which is non negotiable for you. And,
Hmm.
because people can say, well, I want someone who drives a red car. But I mean, if it's a blue car, that's okay. Okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But when they're rude to the wait staff, or they drink a lot, or they're mean to their family, they don't talk to their family, or they don't spend time getting to, they don't have any good friends, whatever is valuable to you, do not negotiate. And I think that's something that we do as women. Is I love that you said the red flags was home decoration. I always say we put the red flags in our purse, we're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, we'll just tuck that one away. But you're right. I think we have to stop making excuses. This is what I say. If you want a dream car, you have an idea of the make, the model, the color, the interior, how does it drive, how's the gas mileage. You go to the dealership and the dealer says, well, I don't have that one, but I have this one over here, but it doesn't have the interior. It's not the color you want. It doesn't get that much gas mileage. You would not go, yeah, sure, that sounds great. Why do we do that with mates? Why do we do that?
Oh, that's amazing. That's such an amazing example because you're right. Like that's literally what we do. And I don't know why. I think, well, I do know why. It all comes down to early childhood and self-worth. We we learn from our early experiences, and that's really where we're taught. So,
Yeah, it's we were told that
yeah.
nobody's perfect. You're gonna have to accept these things. You're not perfect. So, and I've always said, I remember my father saying to me when I went back out into the dating world, he said, "You're not gonna find Mr. Perfect." And I said, "You're right, but I'm gonna find Mr. Perfect for me." And
Hmm.
that is because I set that bar and that ideal avatar for me. That when I went out on those dates, by keeping that avatar and that bar in my mind, fresh in my mind, and I tell everybody, put it on your fridge, put that list on your fridge. You said something so amazing, you're going to see everything. Now it's going to be magnified. You're going to
Hmm.
look. I remember after the toxic relationships, going on a date and sitting down to dinner, and in the first 5 minutes going, I'm never going to see you again, but damn, this food is really good. What a great meal I'm having. I literally was like, I don't care if this doesn't go anywhere because I trust myself now and I recognized it and I'm proud of myself and I'm just here
Hmm.
for a good meal instead of sitting at home, Netflixing. I'm going to have a really good meal and then I'm going to go home and Netflix. So it's it's losing the expectation of every date has to be the one or a potential of the one. Just start dating guys, and this is for men too. I want to make sure that we're not being biased to the women because men have toxic relationships
Hmm.
with toxic women that are just as narcissistic, and men have that low self-esteem as well. So men, I want to say the same to you. Don't go out there and settle for something that is not in alignment with your self-worth and your self-love and the value that you deserve, right?
I absolutely, yep, could not agree more.
So I happen to know that How I Cured My Resting Bitch Face provides mentorship and programs to help women navigate the aftermath of toxic relationships so they can heal and transform their lives. So, how does that work? How does anyone get a hold of you, get involved in this? Let us know how they can reach out and get that help and that mentorship they need.
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram is probably the easiest way to connect with me at Kel_Cal_. And they can send me a message. They can check out my website, howicuredmyrbf.com. And my mentorship program offers guidance for women and the tools and resources that they can use these challenging circumstances to rebuild their life. So I help them navigate the aftermath because when you're there, it can feel impossible and you don't know how to get to that light at the end of the tunnel, and you're not even sure if that light at the end of the tunnel is a train, and it's really hard. I know how hard it is, and I help women navigate that process and really use it as an opportunity to transform their lives.
Yes. Is there a website also they could go to?
Yep, it's howicuredmyrbf.com.
Perfect. Look at that, guys. How I
And
cured my RBF.com.
and then I also have my podcast, Dear Dumb Bitch.
Yes. Yes. I love it. I love it. I love
I
it.
have to have you on my show, Maureen. I love this conversation so much. I want to do a part two for Dear Dumb Bitch.
We totally need to. I told you it's like having coffee with your girlfriend. So tell me, the theme obviously is I never knew. Tell me what is the one thing that if anyone said, hey, what have you learned from all these experiences that you never knew? What is your one thing you never knew?
Oh man, I would say the one thing I never knew is that I never knew how much I didn't know. But if I had to, if I had to narrow it down to just one, I would say that the relationship with yourself is the most important relationship that there is. I missed that life memo. I didn't know you were supposed to have a relationship with yourself. It wasn't instinctual to me. And as a result, I never really knew who I was as a human being. And I always relied on other people to tell me who I was. And I thought I needed to be who they wanted me to be. And as a result, I was never showing up as my genuine self. And then I wondered why all of the relationships in my life felt superficial because I didn't know who I was. I didn't have a relationship with myself. And after being in an abusive marriage, I realized that the relationship with yourself is the most important relationship there is. And it really sets the foundation for every other relationship in your life.
And everything that you do. And I'm going to say this, I, at least in my upbringing, I'm Gen X, and we were always taught, don't be self-centered, don't be selfish, don't be self-absorbed. And I think that really did an injustice, and I think that's why a lot of us women did end up in these toxic relationships, because we felt you're not supposed to put self first. And I love
Mm,
that we are in a movement and we are in a mindset and we are in a mental health awareness space that you have to do self-love first. You are not good for your children, for your job, for your friends, for your family, for anything if you don't love yourself first, because that's who you got to show up for first. So what you just said is we didn't know that. You didn't know because you weren't taught that
hmm
you're allowed to love yourself first. You're allowed to do these things for yourself. So we are here, me and Kel are here to counter any any thought process that you were ever instilled about not being allowed to put yourself first and do your self-care first. And I just I just adore you, Cal. I think I knew everything that we were saying. I'm like, oh, I say that. Oh, I say that. She's amazing. She's we connect because anyone who's been through any of the same experiences in life, as tough as they are, I think the greater the pain, the greater the growth.
mm.
And we get each other, and your vibe brings your tribe. I say this every podcast. I think everybody knows me enough to say that I say this. So, my gratitude that you were brought into my existence today and in my path. Before I leave, the one thing I ask every guest is, what is your shameless self indulgence that you do for yourself?
Oh, my shameless self-indulgence. Oh, that is a really good question. What is my shameless self-indulgence? I would say that I don't know if this is really a self-indulgence, but I love this is silly. I love the beach. Like I spend every single day at the beach. It's like my home. I just feel at home there. Maybe it's from being in Florida, but no matter what type of day it is, I make it a priority to take time for myself. And usually if it's sunny out, then I'm going to be at the beach.
Oh, everyone who does not live near a beach, I'm in Arizona in the desert, but I am going to be moving to Hawaii. And so I feel you, and I'm so jelly because you went from one beach to another beach. So there's just a flow with the ocean. There's something about the ocean that is just peaceful and calming, and you feel so small. You just feel like
Mm-hmm.
nothing's that big going on. Nothing's that major. There's no problem. You can
Yes.
stand on a beach and look at the ocean, and there's no problem that you can be like, oh, it's this big, terrible thing. Because the ocean makes you just understand how small we are and how
It
short,
gives you perspective.
yeah, how short our time is here and
Yeah.
why we shouldn't waste it on anything that doesn't feel good and make us happy and serve us. So that's a very wonderful, it's a first of all my guests at the beach, and I'm really
I also am a big fan of Botox. So we'll just put that out there. The beach and Botox.
the BBs, the B&B. I love it. She
The
likes a little
B&B.
B&B.
Yeah.
Well, you look beautiful, and it obviously is agreeing with you. So, thank you again for being on, and it was just a pleasure. I know all of our listeners are really going to get a lot of information. Guys, don't forget www.howicuredrbf.com, and do not forget to go to her podcast, Dear Dumb Bitch. Look her up on Instagram at Cal_Cal_, right? Did I get that?
Yes, yep, you got it.
Yay! And guys, you can always find me. Comment if you want to be a guest, reach out. I am at lifecoachmaureen.com, and go also find my books on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and everywhere that you buy your books. And my dog is more enlightened than I am, and my dog is my relationship coach. And you'll get more information about relationships and all about self-love in those books, because that's everything that I am about and talk about. So again, reach out if you want to be a guest, and don't forget to give us a 5-star review, because the more engagement we
Mm.
get, the more people we can touch, and the more we can grow this community. And stories help each other. We're here to give each other hope and help, and that's what this podcast is about. So thank you, my lovely Cal, and
Thank you.
you have an absolutely wonderful weekend, and I cannot wait to touch base, and we're going to exchange, because I'm going to be on your podcast, and we're going to have another coffee
Yes, I
talk.
can't wait. I love this conversation. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Thank you, my love.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.